Number one Ibble Dibble here. Hello, friends. Welcome to another very special episode of Ibble Dibble, where I trash archetypes with Meghan. We have 6 misuses of the word archetypes on the counter for this episode, so that's kind of average for her at this point. This episode was simultaneously super boring and secretly juicy. I think my review is going to be about 3 videos. Today's keywords were good wife, good mom, bad mom, and Meghan kept it extremely superficial.
Growing up, I used to love I Love Lucy and also occasionally watch Leave It to Beaver. Both of these shows, by the way, had the good wife and the good mom archetype locked solid, as did cartoons. Do you remember Wilma Flintstone from the Flintstones or Jane Jetson from the Jetsons? Wilma wore pearls, and Jane was always perfectly polished. The happy housewife with the perfect apron, dinner in the oven, husband's slippers by the door. This was all aspirational to me. And being a mom was too.
I'd like to point out that the last episode of the original Leave It to Beaver filmed in 1963.
Beaver, you don't have to say anything. But when you were a baby, you couldn't talk. You couldn't tell me if you were cold or hungry or you had a pain. But I always knew. And somehow, well, that just never changes.
It was always seen as retro and nostalgic, not aspirational or current. At any rate, everyone knows Meghan is a biracial child of divorce, and her mom pursued higher education and a profession later in life. Those could be really interesting topics to discuss with social scientists or her own mom, since she pretends to prize authenticity so highly. She even includes a clip of her mom calling her while she was recording to demonstrate that she is close to someone in her birth family, but doesn't think or choose to include her mom in this conversation.
So a few weeks ago, while I was working on this very episode, my mom called. Hey, Mommy.
That's my girl.
I'm okay. I'm hanging in there. It's okay. I'm recording right now. Do you want to see?
I see.
Hi. We're just doing some podcasting. Can I call you back in a little bit?
You have a smiley face.
I have on a smiley face. I love you. Yeah.
I love you too.
Okay.
See you on Saturday.
Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye. You may have heard this clicking sound that she was doing. All right, gang. My mom literally just pulled out a reference of what I came up with as a cool handshake to do with her when I was about 8, which was snap, scissors, cut, chicken wing. Got me thinking about all the ways my mom supported me, how she took care of me and the house and herself, and how she just juggled so much.
Did she, though? We know from interviews with childhood friends and schoolmates that Meghan spent every evening after school going to extracurricular classes and at the homes of her classmates until very late in the evening when her father would pick her up. We know she spent Saturdays with Thomas, who drove her to ballet class, then acting class, then took her to a diner, then bought her Archie comics. If she spent 1 day a week with Doria, it was a lot. I feel bad for her that she's still so messed up over it. She has to rewrite history. She must know that we know. I understand this isn't red table talk. I actually think it's okay if she wants to keep her family life private. It's just strange to remind us of her mom at all, if that's the case. For all her pretending to get personal and show us how nuanced, layered, and authentic she is, Meghan puts a lot of work into facade management. Anyway, about half the drama in this episode comes in the form of Meghan's first guest, Canada's foolish First Lady, Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau. So let's start there.
We splashed in the water, then threw some pool floats in. By the way, the inflatable pizza slice proved to be a big hit, which I found online, and I kid you not, the one without pepperoni was a few dollars less than the one with pepperoni. And yes, I'm still talking about the inflatable pizza float for the pool. We all got a good laugh out of that.
It's like a joke made by AI using an algorithm based on Tradwife Instagram captions. Oh, Meghan, you're like a simulation of a person. Also, the weird sound mixing with stock noises and voices, this one is kids laughing by the pool, is so weird and unnecessary.
This wasn't our day of being the wives and moms all perfectly coiffed with updos and pearls and demure smiles. This was the other version of us. Both with wild curly hair and swimsuits and loose linen and huge belly laughs. Big cuddles with our little ones. And quiet whispers of girl talk on the terrace, giddy, like absolute schoolgirls.
I'm sorry, did you say perfectly coiffed with updos, pearls, and demure smiles? Because you've never looked like that. You frequently pile on flashy jewelry like totems, couldn't manage to keep your hair out of your face even on your wedding day, and grin like the Cheshire Cat. Meghan. People who wear pearls and respect dress codes are equally capable of having fun and being affectionate with their children. Stop pretending you're poorly dressed because your mind is on other stuff. You are super rich and on the world stage. Hire a stylist with a team. Hell, just call Jessica and say you're sorry.
For homies, it's Sophie G in the house, but nobody knows this. Okay.
Canada, come get your girl. It is so not a good look for her to talk about her homies when her husband was ridiculed for wearing blackface several times, most recently in 2001 at the age of 30.
Sophie Gregoire is my legal name, and then Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau because of the association.
Because of the association? She assumes people know she's the wife of Justin Trudeau and therefore the First Lady of Canada, rather than being his sister, cousin, or similar. And what an odd way to say it, both distancing herself from her husband and trivializing his element of her identity, which, for better or worse, is something one accepts when they marry and take their spouse's name. Clearly, this sense of competition with their own husbands is something Sophie and Meghan share.
And I get called Madame because of protocol very often. I'm sure you know about, how that feels. And it just, my ears screech every time I'm like, oh, I'm not a Madame.
She says she's called Madame due to protocol, but it's really not that serious. In French, Madame is equivalent to Madame in English, just a way for people to respectfully address a woman they don't know who looks older than, say, 30. Sophie uses the word protocol because she wants to assume the status of First Lady of Canada, while giving Justin zero credit for lending that status to her. This is very similar to Meghan's insistence on calling Harry my husband or my current husband or H, yet insisting she be introduced and credited as the Duchess of Sussex always. She says she cringes at Madame, perhaps because it makes her feel old, but I'd like to remind Sophie that many women get treated with zero respect.
That's Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau. She's an activist, humanitarian mother, and also wife to Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.
Sophie has never been an activist or humanitarian of any kind. She was on the Montréal debutante circuit, working in TV and as a personal shopper at Holt Renfrew before she married Justin, a childhood friend with the exact same background as her, at the age of 30. Quote unquote, giving back is a social norm for socialites. For singles, the charity circuit is a meat market with a pretty face. The Trudeaus proudly recount re-meeting as adults, whatever that means, when they were paired up to serve as co-chairs for a charity gala in their hometown. And for marrieds, it's business and occasionally political networking. Failure to distinguish between, or failure to recognize the importance of distinguishing between, the personal, political, social, and commercial is typical of this milieu, particularly second, third, fourth, etc. generations of it, who have been raised in a very sheltered manner and can't necessarily parse why their parents or grandparents dealt with this family but not that one, this issue but not that one. Greta Thunberg is an activist. Malala Yousafzai is a humanitarian. Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau was a socialite who did the requisite charity minimum and is a first lady. Let's not get it twisted. I'm not saying she hasn't been helpful to some good causes. It's okay to espouse ideas without embodying them totally. I just wonder if Meghan flatters her guests in such an outsized way, unaware that it makes them seem egotistical and it makes her look pandering or inarticulate or both, or if she actually does it to embarrass them.
Sophie has become a dear friend and someone who I think is so emblematic of strength that comes from embracing your humanity, even in the face of all these family and home and public pressures. Keeping that sense of self while holding up the mantle of what comes with being a parent and a spouse, that's a full plate.
No, being emblematic of embracing humanity is not the same as maintaining a sense of self. In fact, that's where the word selfless comes from. Nothing is wrong with either. They are not totally mutually exclusive. Both are worthy endeavors, but they are not the same endeavor. And no, simply being able to hold on to your sense of self while raising a family is not a full plate, not a full-time job plus. You know who, to quote Meghan directly, is so emblematic of the strength that comes from embracing humanity even in the face of all these family, home, and public pressures? Keeping that sense of self while holding up the mantle of what comes with being a parent and a spouse, a full plate. My gosh, that's a mouthful. The lady who served my lunch today. 5 a.m. to 8 p.m., she's running her Cambodian restaurant for tourists. Her husband is in the back hacking coconuts, butchering chickens, and filleting fish, while her mom and aunt cook. And she and her sister and her friend wear beautiful traditional clothes and serve fantastic food to an international clientele that does not speak their language, understand their manners, or always treat them well. When her children get home from school, they politely greet the guests in English and French and will sell you a fan or a bottle of water for $1 without being obnoxious about it. I'm sure that when she gets home at night, someone has to clean up and help with homework, and I bet it's her. She is emblematic of the strength that comes with embracing humanity, even in the face of all these family, home, and public pressures, keeping that sense of self while holding up the mantle of what comes with being a parent and a spouse, a full plate. Not Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau. Sophie Gregoire-Trudeau is only emblematic of the bourgeois dream of generational rise in privilege and power fulfilled.
I think we've learned to self-impose it. We're not born, a little girl is not born feeling guilty for being a girl. We learn it. And that's completely unacceptable. We often define freedom as a way to be free from the world, but it's really a way to be free in the world. A way to be free in the world, not free from the world.
With all due respect, what are you on about? No one is free of the world except for dead people and some religious recluses. To pretend this is a meaningful distinction and not etymological codswallop is an insult to the intelligence of your listeners.
This whole archetyping of good mom, bad mom, the judgment, what's wrong, what's right, ultimately, isn't it what authentically makes sense to you as a mom, as a human being, as a parent? And I don't want to get too emotional, but whatever your situation is, the stress and anxiety is real. And our sense of community has completely exploded. Can you imagine having a baby and then having to make a choice of, oh, I can stay home with my child, but if I do, then I won't have a job anymore? Doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make sense at all. They used to say it takes a village to raise a child. Yes, of course. Right? Yeah. We no longer have villages, really, for us, and at least in where we live, it doesn't feel that way, but it doesn't mean that that energy and that sentiment can't still be there.
I realize they're just sticking to their official rules here. How superficial can a conversation about universal paid parental leave be between two reasonably well-educated, reasonably intelligent, upper-class women? These two are really pushing the limits.
I think the expression is, if I'm not mistaken, Ubuntu. I am because you are, and you are because I am, right? I love that you know that. Yes, it is. Of course, and it resonates like in my blood. Like it's just, yes, that's exactly how the world is an intricate, interwoven system where everyone and everything is intertwined. It really is that.
Okay, now I just don't know who is trolling who. Madame Blackface versus Footsec Megan?
So if you were to have 3 words to describe yourself as a little girl, what 3 words would you choose? You're killing me! Okay. Sensitive, courageous, and funny. I'm funny. You are really funny. 3 words to describe yourself today, now. Oh, you just triggered something that I just felt that I hope I can say those 3 words again. That's incredible. Courageous, sensitive, and funny. Because yes, I've been doing so much work to go back to that little Sophie inside of me through all the adversity, through all my own struggles, and I found her. So I'm going to continue to take care of her.
To Megan's credit, she's kind of smartly realized that the highest compliment for some of these women seems to be calling them or the autobiographical characters they create nuanced, layered, authentic, and real. While it's usually not true, I suppose to women who have been raised as daddy's little princess, mommy's gifted student, this seems like some sort of recognition at least.
It was really great. Thank you. It was really deep and beautiful. So I just hope it resonates. It's the only thing I hope for. And thank you to everybody in the studio who was there too. Thanks, team. Sophie, I'll talk to you soon. Big kiss. Thank you. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Doesn't she have a social secretary and a media team to prevent stuff like this? Because thank you. Like, share, and subscribe. Bye.